First though, it's very hard. Even for me, growing up here was knocking that first appointment was the hardest one.
Letting go of the hand after a while and letting the people be able to maneuver themselves, because we know we can't hold your hand forever. I think when it comes to trauma health and prevention, if you're talking about families and stuff like that, you go back to the source. You all, I want to look at
look at them, man.
Look at you all when I tell you this.
All right, again, I'm right here back. This is your brother Farhan. I'm with one of our special guests, Nanette. Nanette, tell us who you are and why you're passionate about what you do.
My name is Nanette Dix. I work for the Office of Violence Prevention here in Louisville, Kentucky, and I am the TRC program manager. And why I'm passionate about what I do is just because it's a calling. Once you get a calling, you have to go towards that calling. And I just feel like in every fiber of me, what I'm doing is a calling. So it doesn't feel like work. It just feels like something that I should be doing. I was born to do.
That is great. Thank you for that. And today's episode is a TRC talk. We talked about this at the beginning of the year, to have a TRC talk and have many episodes. We will have more guests from your office as well.
Okay.
And we know your experience on trauma resilient. This is what you expert at. And as a non-profit that is led by immigrants and refugees. Like our organization is led by people who have experienced it in being a refugee and immigrant, and they live in the community. So with partnering with your office, we just give us resources and support. We're really happy about that, and we appreciate it all the time. But one thing we wanted to share is there's a climate going on right now. There's a fear of our immigrant communities when it comes to enforcement, right? I myself came here as a refugee, and for 20 years ago, but there's a fear. Like, even I feel like I have to carry my passport because of the policies and enforcement happening. And so I worry about other community members that are here. So what we see, there's a fear. How can we go around about it for the fear and the trauma that people can see this time?
I think you just have organic, honest conversations around what you're feeling, because, you know, and then normalize it. Normalize that, yeah, you're going to feel this way.
Correct.
Because sometimes people don't want to talk about it because maybe it's just me. I've been here, like you said, 20 years, and now I feel this kind of way, but maybe it's just me. You know, no, everybody's going to feel that way.
Correct.
You know, it's sort of like, you know, sharing around your freedom papers. Like, I'm going to show you this, that I'm supposed to be here. And no one wants to feel like that. No one wants to feel like an outsider when you feel like you have found your home.
Correct.
And and then, you know, most of the immigrant population has went through a lot of stuff to get to where they are here.
Correct.
And then now you at the point where I can exhale. Now I'm holding my breath again. Wow. When do I stop holding my breath? So just normalize it. Normalize how you feel and say, yes, I too feel like that. And just have a really non-judgmental way of just letting people express how they feel. And I think sometimes you just need a listening ear, and that just works out the best. Just like, hey, I'm feeling this way. Hey, I'm feeling this way too. So they don't feel like they're isolated on the island by themselves.
Correct.
But how can we help each other, you know, and be each other's keeper?
That's really actually amazing, because me coming here, so like in my experience, I'm a child of civil war. So coming, live in my country, I go to Kenya, which is like another country that I have to stay as a refugee for 17 years so I can get an opportunity to come here. So it took me 17 years, and then we came to the US. And then you carry all this trauma, right? You carry the war trauma. You went to another country, I don't speak their language. And then now I have to leave that country, come to the US, and I don't speak the language again. And I have to carry all this with me, right? And then you have to keep proving who you are again. And so that type of trauma, we don't talk about it, as you say. We need to talk about it and normalize it.
And I think it's not the just proving who you are. It's the dredge of it, proving your worth.
Okay.
Your worth to be here.
Right.
What is your worth? What value do you add? And you've shown how much value you add. But now they're saying, I'm up the ante, and you have to show me more. So that's a lot. That's a lot to be, like you said, the psychological damage of, especially you still young, so you had to wait 17 years before you even got to another country to get over here. So that's a lot of childhood trauma. And we talk about ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. So that really kind of triggers some of that. And then you're going to start feeling like, okay, I'm doing all this work. I'm showing, I'm working in the community. I'm trying to be this good, quote unquote, citizen. But now I'm looked at as just a person that doesn't supposed to be here.
Correct.
And I'm looked at a person that's maybe taking some jobs from somebody, which I'm not. And it's kind of hard, because if you talk to an African American male and talk about, seeing people lock up their stuff or walking on the other side of the street when they walk by, that's similar things. It's because it's like, where do you fit in?
What do you fit in?
If I show that, then sometimes people are saying that they're trying to not speak so much thickness of their, their native tongue, or their, like if you speak another language, you always gonna have an accent. How can I, normalize this accent? I don't want this accent no more.
Correct.
But that's a part of you.
Yes. That's
a part of your heritage. That's a part of your culture. But I have to hide that. It's like, you ever, heard about what's called passing? Like in the African American community, if you were lighter than a brown paper bag, a lot of times people passed. And so they passed because they could pass. They can be, they were the hue close enough that people didn't know who they were. So they can pass. So they had to leave their identity behind just to survive in the world. And it's, psychological damage to passing.
Wow. Yes, I mean, that's correct. I agree with you. And also, like me being Muslim, immigrant, Black, so it's like I'm carrying all these layers. Where this administration is against all these things. It's like more like, so how do people like me in this community be, as you said, just be proud of who you are, accepted, be, you're part of the community who believe that you are Somali American or whatever, your citizenship is. How do you keep reminding yourself that it's okay to be here, you belong here? And as an expert on that side of it, what will be your message to them?
I think the unity in your community, keep yourself attached to community. Keep yourself attached to the roots of your value system, and just keep yourself attached, because, it's an old age adage that this too shall pass. And, sometimes we're tired of being resilient. It's just like resiliency. I understand resiliency gets you from point A to point B, but resiliency comes with weight. Being resilient means that you had to shove through some stuff,
right,
to get to that, and so it wears you down after a while. So, but I will just say, Jess, you know who you are.
Correct.
You know what you bring to the table. Don't let nobody tell you otherwise. And it's hard to keep your head up when people want you to keep it down.
Correct.
But, many before us have kept their head up. So be that person that your folks look to, because they are going to look, because you are the head of the household in your family, but you're the head of your community too.
Correct.
You're one of the leaders of your community, and they're going to look to you to see how Farhan does. So, and you have me to buffer off of, so you need to buffer and say, hey, look.
Absolutely.
It's too much, but yet and still just move forward, because you know who you are.
Correct.
You got a solid foundation of who you are, and nobody can take that away from you.
Your identity, right?
Yes.
And I believe it's been a leverage to have access to people like you, people that I know I can call and ask questions. And when somebody calls me, like what happened last week was this single mother got to an accident, and she did not want to call. She called me, and she says, I don't want to call the police because I don't know what they're going to do to me. And I say, how do you feel about it? What do you want to do? Like, how it makes you comfortable? She said, I don't want to call them. And I said, do that, because it shouldn't get to that point. But I believe on how you feel comfortable, what makes you feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Right.
And sometimes you need those support systems around you to.
She wanted to hear that,
And LMPD is not ICE.
Right.
They're not affiliated, but it's just the uniformity of it, and it makes you so scared of everything that's
system,
it's in the system. So, but understanding that they're still just to hear your words say, hey, go ahead and call. You need to call, and have their reinforcement, or if you need to be by their side, I'll be there with you.
Correct.
When you call them, so you because you can't help how you feel.
Yes.
And a lot of times things can trigger you, and you can go into that panic mode, and you can, be totally different from what your normal emotions will be. Because if you think about trauma responses, and if you are working with a traumatized brain, that fight, flight, or freeze, that primitive brain, it's going to overshadow anything else. It's not going to get to your prefrontal cortex, which says, hey, call the police. They're going to be the ones to help you. It's not going to filter through there. You're going to either want to fight, flight, or freeze. You're going to, run away from the situation because your primitive brains, when it gets triggered and when it's scared.
Right. And also because when you say that, and, we give the support that I could, but I also remember me coming back from, a war-torn country. We never trusted police.
Yeah.
Because they were against us. Not all of them, but they were against us. And you don't want to call for help. That's the last thing you want to do.
Yeah.
So bring that mentality here. And it's going to trigger, right? So what do you call that trigger? Is it like a trauma? Because
it's just like any kind of learned trauma. So like say you, like you said, and then it could be the same for their single mother.
Right.
It could be that back in the country, you cannot trust any kind of authoritative figure because that they will pull you, they will get you, and all of that. So you're gonna especially now, what do you see? They are dressed as authoritarian figures.
Correct.
So that kind of triggers your response, and it kind of rewinds the tape, and you're in America, but now you're back in it. You're thinking about everything what happened in your country.
Yes.
It just goes back to that. And anything can rewind the tape in your mind when you have a traumatized brain to go back to the source of the trauma. Now, and I'm not saying that it's rational, because when you traumatize, your thinking is not rational. You got wonky thinking.
Correct.
Because it impacts how you think, how you feel, and how you react. And under what you can do with that is, like, again, normalize how you feel and understanding where this feeling is coming from. This feeling is coming from, triggered of things that happened in the past and triggered by the things that's happening now.
Correct.
It triggers your past.
And so you just have to normalize it. And sometimes it could be anxiety, right?
Yeah.
And so if they need help, and this is increasingly coming back, what type of help they should look for? So,
we do have our programs within, within the SAMHSA grant,
right,
the Community Mental Health Project. Talking to someone, you can just talk to a CSA, and they could be just that person that you want to talk about your feelings with.
Correct.
Or they can talk about somebody that is more specialized, because if the trauma is deep, then they could say, oh, I think they need therapy.
Correct.
They really need, cognitive behavioral therapy, where it teaches you how to rethink and how you react.
Correct.
All kinds of things. Whatever that person needs, they need to probably be assessed, especially if it's starting to, what I would say, if it's impacting, you're not coming out of the house now.
Yes.
You're not doing this now. It's impacting how, where you move in the world. That now you need a higher level of intervention, and now you need therapy.
Thank you for that. And how does the fear affect whole families and neighborhood, not just individuals?
So in your communities, I could see kind of twofold,
right,
because of the fact that, especially if you have people in your community that was naturally born here.
Yes.
And the younger generation may see it a little bit different from the older generation, because they're coming from those episodes and stuff like that.
Right.
So, and that's even within the African American community, the elders that tell us, hey, don't do this and make sure you do this. And the younger folks say, no, we changed and we're doing this. And, and then history repeats itself sometimes.
Right.
So I think sometimes it's important on just have that dialogue. But and just let them know that I'm saying this because I'm worried, but making sure that we're not over worrying. So I did a piece with the University of Louisville School of Public Health centered around the rise of PTSD in African American mothers since Trayvon Martin, because all of the police shootings and different things like that, and how we began to be helicopter parents. Like I was calling my kids anytime an episode or incident happened. I'm calling my son, "Where you at? Where you?" And they're like, "Mom, I'm home." No, they wasn't probably nowhere near this, but it just triggers something in me. My innate ability, this being this mother hovering bear, that I'm going to protect my babies, I'm going to protect my cubs, and I was on constant alert. So my blood pressure probably was through the roof because I was scared that somebody's going to see my baby as a other, and they're going to hurt my child. And they're not going to see the loving child I have. They're just going to see what they depict my child to be. Right. And so I was so scared. And I think sometimes we have to, really have that conversation to make sure that our thought process, like I said, trauma can make your thought process wonky, and making sure we have the right thought process. So we have to check ourselves as a family, talk to somebody. I would, as the parent of the family, talk to Farhan and just say, "Hey, is this normal, or am I being abnormal?" Because sometimes our experiences can make us going into the abnormal. Well, now the whole house is paranoid. Now, there's nothing wrong with saying, "Hey, watch out for this, this, and this," and make sure we move in caution. But then we're shutting doors and closing windows and stuff like that. That's detrimental to us.
It is because it's, I just said, it triggers because I was watching on the news. And my daughter, she was born here, 11 years old. She was like, it was in Minnesota about protesting and ICE. And she knows her auntie lives in Minnesota. And she asked me, "Aunt Nora lives there." And she said her name. And she said, "She's safe." And that tricks me. I'm like, wow. Kids think about...
And they know a lot more, but it's our reaction to them. Because kids work on our reaction. So you're like, "Oh yeah, the auntie, she's safe. You want to call her? Let's talk to her." So in her mind, "Oh, I know, I talked to my auntie, she's safe." But if we like, it's, "Oh my God," and then that's gonna make her worry. So sometimes we have to hold ourselves, and our heart could be like this, she made me start thinking about something. Right. You could be doing like this because your heart beating, but trying to calm ourselves down to make sure because our kid's gonna reciprocate our emotions. So if we're like, "Oh my God, I don't know," then she's scared.
Yes.
So, okay.
She's safe. Yeah.
She's safe.
We can call her.
Yeah, let's call her up.
That's great. And what warning signs should parents watch for kids who are struggling silently?
So kid behaviorally, if your kids starting to stop what they're doing, so like say if your kid was a social butterfly, but now they're closing up and they're isolating, start talking to them, and just have, age appropriate conversations. So if you have your daughter's 11, you said, you can have an age appropriate conversation. Tell me about, how does this make you feel? So you said the other day, about your auntie, she lived in Minnesota and all this stuff is going on. How does it make you feel? What do you feel in your body, and where do you feel it at in your body? Like my head hurts, my stomach hurts and stuff like that. Are you okay? And you can talk to me about anything. Yeah. And, is everybody treating you well? Different things like that. You can just have a conversation that is age appropriate for that child.
Right. Yes. And another thing, Nanette, so that last week I was talking to one of the clients. I was referring them to a clinic for assessment. But what triggers me was that client said he doesn't want to go to see a doctor because he doesn't know if his information be shared with someone else. Like
it's HIPAA law, so you don't.
I say nobody's gonna share it, but he said, "Is there a way that this could be done in my place?" And asking maybe that's an option, right?
So what kind of first is it therapeutic?
Yeah, therapeutic. Yeah.
So they do have telehealth.
Okay.
They do have telehealth. They and especially like within the CHP, they can talk to them, and they can talk to them at home via computer or whatever, or they can come to their home. Okay. It's according to what the client needs.
Correct.
And I know that it is kind of hard. Like, one thing we do not do, especially going back to that question about youth and stuff like that, is when they had the shooting at the bus stop,
Right.
and the young mother got killed. First, people were going out and saying, "Are you okay? Are you?" And the kids was like, "Huh?" They didn't know nothing happened. So that's why we don't say too much. We kind of just assess the situation, making sure, and we can talk about how to assess, and we can talk about training on QPR and stuff like that, monitoring and stuff like that. If kids have, like, if they're suicidal or because of issues that's going on, or just monitoring situations like mental health first aid, just monitoring the situations around before we start saying, "Hey, this," because they may not be thinking of it that way, and we can be thinking of it because of all of our past traumas.
Right.
And we don't want to dump that on them to carry our past traumas. So just understanding that. But for the telehealth, yes, you could do that. But nobody should be sharing your information because of HIPAA.
Yes.
Now, they will. And I have to tell your audience this. If you said you're going to harm somebody else or harm yourself, they have to report that.
Correct. Okay. And so how can trust be rebuilt when people fear schools, hospitals, and institutions? How can we build that trust when people feel like they don't trust institutions? What's your intake?
So what I would ask is, ask the question, why?
Okay.
Is it stemming from something that really happened, or is it just regurgitated stuff that's because of what's happening now? And it's just past traumas that you are identifying with because you opened up the door of your past traumas. Now they're fleeting into your emotions now. Is it past trauma, or something has actually happened to make you, distrust the doctors and stuff now? And you just have to talk about that.
Right. And I mean, there's also what I usually tell them, people that I know, is America has one of the best doctors, and people believe that, but also people will, if you don't ask, and if you don't go look for the information, you don't get. So we have a resource director here that shares all that information with the client to sit down and see what they need. But it's mostly let them understand that the process, it's complicated, but if you have someone who's helping you the process, like making the appointment for you, giving you the address, it helps a lot. And we've seen that's a big impact on the community, because the system feels complicated when you don't know how to go through about it, right? Like 7 counties, when we're sending an appointment, we know who to contact. We know direct contact, we know the interpreter. So sometimes is making it easier for them access to institutions is what rebuilds also
the trust. Because I worked as a social service clinician and worked with people that were dealing with mental health issues and substance misuse, co-occurring illnesses. And I had one person he did not like to go to any hospitals or anything like that. He was chronically homeless. He just gotten into his apartment like a few months before I became his case manager. And so one day I came to his house and I knew he had, issues. He kept saying, somebody, the Section 8 stole his pee. I can't pee no more. I can't pee. So he's a man of 60-something years old. And I'm like, okay, he must be having some prostate issues. And because I know around that time you could have some prostate. And I asked him, but he's schizophrenic, so his mind is all over the place. He's in different decades. And so I had to take him to the hospital because I did some assessments on him. And plus I used to be a medical assistant, so I did some, like physical assessments on him. And so I said, well, we're going to go to the hospital. And he's like, no. And he, because he was very agitated because he always ended up on the psych ward when he went to the hospital. And so I went with him. And they had to come in and do a cath. So he's like, I said, I'm going to step outside the door. He's like, no, you said you're not going to leave me. I said, but you're going to hear my voice. And I talked to him the whole time he was there. Yes, he did end up on the psych ward, but he knows why he ended up on the psych ward. And we talked about that. I said, Mr. So-and-so, now were you doing this and this and this? And he was like, yes. I said, that's what ends up you on the psych ward. Let's try not to do those things. And you may not end up on the psych ward. But he was so scared because people pushed him away because of his behaviors, and they dismissed some things. But sometimes you have to hold people's hand. You have to meet them where they are. So that soft handoff, like you said, you can go to 7 counties and you know who to take them to.
Right.
So you know who the friendly voices are, especially for those people that need those friendly voices, so they can see, things that they seen that was totally like the police. In their country, no. In their country, this and this and this. But here, we want you to see them differently and through a different lens.
Right.
And sometimes it's going to take a while because they're so scared. And it's okay to be scared because there's coming from a place why we know they're scared.
Yes. And, so one thing is for the long term, building trust, because I've seen most of the clients that come to the office, they will not schedule an appointment unless you tell them, like sometimes, like, hey, you need to go see this doctor. But they're like, it's like the language, okay, is another barrier. It's like, hey, call it for me, see what's done, okay. But when you call it for them, and they usually attend the first appointment, because you set up the stage 1, and it's usually follow up with them. But one thing we see in a pattern is once you do the first one, if there's not a follow-up, it doesn't happen again. Yeah.
And I think with that, especially like if you take in, I don't know if you all go with them to the appointments, but if you do, just get that word, you can sign a release form so they can give you information, so they can say, hey, it may take that they send you the follow-up appointment.
Right.
You remind them, hey, you got a follow-up appointment. Some people you may have to hold their hands.
Yes.
And it's just you, their safety net.
Correct.
They feel because if it's a language barrier, am I hearing what they said? You know what I mean? Because you ever seen Charlie Brown and they're walking. After a while, you get so scared and then you don't hear anything. And if English is not your first language, sometimes I can talk to doctors, and doctors be saying those words and all over the place, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah, and
I'm a learning woman, but I don't. Some of the stuff I don't know. And then you get scared when you go into the doctor anyway. Your guard's always up, and you get scared, especially going to dentist. I won't hear nothing, so I'll be scared of the dentist. But so some things could give you stress too, especially if you're thinking you got something wrong with you, and and you're getting stressed out anyway. That can cause stress. But I just think what you all are doing, when you're giving that soft handout, you're being, what I would call, a mentor, or you can call like somebody that's really helping these people out. I think it's really good what you're doing, and keep doing that. But at some point, they're going to have to start doing it themselves.
Correct.
Yeah,
that's
at
what
some
we
point.
want to be independent.
Yeah.
And but I believe is that first though, it's very hard. Even for me, growing up here, was knocking that first appointment was the hardest one. Because once you get to know those doctors, once you get to know that clinic, it will become normal to just call again because they have your information, because you don't have to fill up all the paperwork again unless you have a foot in. Okay.
And I think like if the first appointment, you may be talking more, helping them out more.
Correct.
But as you progress with those other appointments, they should be the one asking those questions.
Yes, sure.
And then you should be the one that's saying less and less. And it's similar to like your kid riding a bike, you holding on, and you holding on a little less, then you holding on, and then now they riding a bike and you ain't even holding no more, and they don't know, so they can go ahead and be okay.
Correct. And Nate, what for the Trauma Resilient project, what gives you hope and what worries you?
What gives me hope is just to seeing, that we're doing work out here, and people are, grateful for some of this work. And it doesn't even mean the gratefulness, but meaning what I talk about gratefulness is that they need it.
Yes.
And also really just listening to the folks. So we just had our night of remembrance for the victims of violence in 2025. And what we heard was the people really loved this night of remembrance because we listened. We listened to the voices. We listened to what they said that they wanted. And not only what they said they wanted, just I'm always observing what people need. And then knowing the audience that we're going to be catering to anyway. So just doing that. What gives me, you said the other words, what gives me
What worries you? Yeah.
worries, just the budgetary thing, because we just had the SAMHSA budget. We're federally funded, and they in the middle of the night they told me your money's gone, but then the next day or two the money's back in there. So those things like that, policy changes and stuff, that worries, because we know we have to have funding to do the work.
Sure.
Now, like I said at the beginning, this is my calling, but we still know there takes funds to be able to do your calling. Yes, in the way that you need to.
Right, and resources, because when people suffer, they don't understand the policies and what's behind the office and how this operation happens. They don't thinking about that. They have their own issues, like hierarchy, as you always talk about. Hierarchy of life.
Because if I'm over here hungry, I'm not caring that they changed some policies and you cut my food stamps, or because they're doing this, I'm upset, and they're going to be upset at the messenger, not the policies behind that.
Right.
We know that DCPS gives me SNAP benefits, and my SNAP benefits is not here. So I don't like DCPS, even though DCPS ain't got nothing to do with them taking the funding or changing, but yet and still, it's just the presenter, the person who's saying, I'm sorry, but we have to close this because of this. You get the flack, but we got thick skin. We already know that.
Correct.
We just roll with those punches. But yet and still, sometimes we don't have, but I like to be transparent, and and transparency meaning that, hey, this money ebbs and flows, and it may flow, and it may just stop. So just understanding that it's not a total stream of funds that keeps coming down. Now, we would love that, and then a lot of times we got so caught up in that because ARP, because of COVID and all that stuff. It was a floodgates of funds that was rolling through.
Yeah.
And now this, it's kind of now dams are being built all over the place that's disconnecting these funds. But it wasn't meant to be something forever.
Right.
So that's why we're talking about, again, the word resiliency, but also the word, just making sure that we understand that we are letting go of the hand after a while and letting the people be able to maneuver themselves, because we know we can't hold your hand forever.
Absolutely, I agree with you on that one. And Nanette, I'm a big fan of, and our listeners like to hear this, is I believe in prevention is better than cure.
Mm-hmm.
For when it comes to the trauma health and substance abuse, what are your advice on prevention?
I think when it comes to trauma health and prevention, if you're talking about families and stuff like that, you go back to the source. Like you said, you've been here for years. You spent 17 years before you got here.
Yes.
And then when I think moved to another country, didn't have to spend, I guess, I don't know how many years before you came here. But working on your trauma health. Because what we do, we carry suitcases with us. And I said we all born with a suitcase. Some people may be, blessed enough to have an empty suitcase. And only what they put in their suitcase is the stuff that they go through life with. But for most of us, 99.99 of us have suitcases that got our mama's trauma in it, our daddy's trauma in it, our people's trauma in it, our nation's trauma in it. It's got a lot of stuff that we're carrying that ain't even ours.
Right.
So we have to understand that. So as we move and as we talk to our youth and stuff like that, making sure we're okay, that we're credible messengers. Yes, because we live through stuff, but are we okay to be that messenger? Working on ourselves. So that's a preventive measure for the family.
Right.
Because if I know how to take care of me, then I can talk to my kids in another way, a trauma-informed way, talking to them like my mama may have said, set your bad butt down, girl. All right, what's wrong with you? That may not work for me.
Correct.
Well, my mom said, what's going on with you to make you act this way? Come on, let's talk about it. That'll open up doors for me. So sometimes we have to think about that as a preventive measure. Also, education. The stuff that you are doing now. Yes. Like you said, it used to be talking about, mental health or trauma and stuff like that was very taboo.
Yeah.
Because you keep that, and that you keep that to heart. But yet, and still now you can talk about it. You having a podcast about it. It's my second time being here to talk about this subject. So the thing about that is, it's just that education, keeping people understanding, and then normalizing that it's okay not to be okay all the time.
Right.
Because this world is traumatic.
Right.
And you're gonna face some kind of trauma. It could be low T trauma or big T trauma, but you're going to face something in your life. But it's just that prevention piece is a key, but that comes with education that comes to it. And it may not, and the seeds and that you setting now, generations to come will be able to enjoy that shade. And that's a lot of times we want to plant these trees and we want to enjoy the shade, but it's not for us to enjoy the shade all the time. We continue to plant the trees and sow it, and making sure these trees grow up so our generations to come to enjoy the shade.
That's true, and I agree 100% is education, because there was a scenario. A father is 67. And he was one of our workshops, 101 mental health, understanding what is mental health, the science for the youth. And he never done this session, but a few months later, he called me and says, my son is acting up. So it feels great to hear that at least he understood his son.
Yeah.
Because if he never knew this, then he wouldn't even identify his son was going through. He said he's isolating himself, and he say, what should I do next? And so we go from there. And that's part of the education is,
yes,
we usually underrate education, but that's the key comes to, if everybody's educated in the community, then that will solve our own problems.
And that's a prevention. Right. We just did a prevention, because if he did not have that education process, he could have just thought, okay, my son's, he's isolating, but not think about it. And then it could have led to something worse. The son could have been very...
and he was helped, His son was helped, and we follow up, and he went to the Peace Hospital because he was going through it, and he get help. And now he knows at least he watches his son more. But, and I was like, if that father could save his son, then we need to do more of education.
Yes.
And talk about it, because as an African immigrant communities, mental health, we see someone who is in chains. That's what we thought before, right? But it's not. It's part of our health.
Yeah.
And normalize it, to talk about it, because our kids can go through it, as adults can go through it.
Yeah.
But if we don't talk about it, you say, then...
It's just like you said, it took 17 years, and you were coming from a war-torn country.
Yes, that's...
Seeing all of that stuff. How many other refugees have seen the same? And just understanding that is trauma. And sometimes your trauma shows up in weird ways. Like you say, I'm avoiding personality. Once something gets too heavy, I'm avoiding it, and I don't care. I'll just leave it alone, because it gets too scary when things are. Some people can live in chaos, because that's all they know is chaos. And if it becomes where we take away their chaos, I don't know how to live like this. I don't know how to live where somebody ain't cursing me or hollering at me. So I need to go back to that chaos. But that's a part of, we need to talk about that. Chaos shouldn't be. Like if you live in somewhere where, if you live here and it was, you heard gunfire all the time. If I come and if I hear gunfire, I'm going to be like, gunfire. I'm going to be, because that's not my normal. But some people are, girl, that's 2 blocks away. That becomes your normal. You don't even move. You don't even jump. Where I'm like, So, but that's not good, because what it does, it just picks away. It may not get a big chunk of you, but it starts messing with you mentally, physically, and spiritually.
Right. And another question is, Nanette, is I met with several parents, and the kids were born here, but they picked up maybe opioid. They become addicted to opioid. Some of them addicted to alcohol. And what they usually don't understand is they are pushing away the children instead of supporting them. What message do you have for them?
Well, opioids and alcohol and different things like that could be coping mechanisms.
Okay.
So just seeing what's the underlying issue. It could be you have addiction issues in your family. You know, it could just be, you know, if you, we always used to do a genogram, and it goes back to where did this come from? And you could say, oh, granddaddy, two generations down was a full-blown alcoholic. Now they just kind of trickle this way. Or maybe we had some little uncles and stuff that it's in our lineage, that it could be some issues. And then one day we see, you know, we'd be drinking and we're doing, you know, socially drugs or whatever. And then now I can't stop. I got that broken light switch where everybody else can cut it off and pick it back up on the weekend, but now I can't cut mine off. I'm in full-blown addiction. It could just be other things. Plus the fifth vital sign, which means pain. So we didn't want people to feel pain, so they give them opioids. Everybody cannot handle the side effects of opioids. And then some people, if you have that addiction issue, that addiction little thing in your body, that can click that light switch on, and then you're seeing that I can't stop using this. I like the way it feels. Or if you're going through a lot of trauma, that numbingness, taking away this for a while, becomes addictive too. So what I would say is really just talk to your children, seeing what's going on with their lives. Talk to them not judgmentally. And it's hard as a parent because you'll be like, what you mean you're doing this? Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. I mean, we all do it. I mean, we just all parent, you know, it's sometimes I am a therapist by trade. I have a lot of degrees up under my belt, a lot of acronyms behind my name. But sometimes you're going to get mama. And mama ain't going to be that trained clinician that talks right. Sometimes I'm gonna be like, what the blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, because
you know, because that's what we do. But I have to check myself and just talk to your kids. What is going on? And drugs are really available. So, you know, sometimes we just start using them as recreation, and kids don't think about that. I could get hooked on this opioid because it's very addictive.
Correct.
Yeah.
Thank you. And what the key is, I always do education about it, is there is clinics, there's place they can go, they can get help. It's not easy just to say stop doing it, you know.
No, and especially opioids. Once they get in your system, people say, well, why don't you stop? Do you know what opioids do to your body if you do not go into the hospital to get detox? It could kill you.
Because you get used to it. It's just
it could be because of what it does to your body. Like after 24 hours, you'll be having the shakes and stuff and diarrhea and all that. And then 48 hours, you can have explosive diarrhea and vomiting. It could take your body into shock and kill you.
That's a safer way.
So, so you need to get medically detoxed, especially if you've been, you know, on them for a long time and they've been your everyday occurrence. You need to get medically detoxed. And they have all kinds of programs out there. They have intensive outpatient programs that if you still, you know, if you jumped over the broom into, being an IV drug user and different things like that, and you know that it's impacted every piece of your life, then you may have to go in-house and then, you know, really do an in-house treatment.
Treatment, yes. And the other question was the grief trauma, you know, because I'm part of the board of our community when it comes to funeral and the processing, and I usually get calls on, and I call you about this a couple of times. You support on when somebody passes away in your family, there is a grief, and but people don't know, they're numb. I've seen that families are numb, but we do 3 days of visiting the family. All the families will come and support the family and say sorry, but after those 3 days, you become isolated. That's when it hits you.
Yes.
And what do you recommend when this happens?
Well, the stages of grief, the first stage of grief is denial. Like, this ain't happened. Because your brain has to catch up with the fact that what you just heard.
Right.
Then there could be that bargaining. And it's not linear. It doesn't have to go like this. You can have some stages, you can have just one or two, or you can have all of them. Right. And then it's that bargaining, like if I would have did something different, if I wouldn't have gave him the key to the car, then he would have been here. If I would have just called Farhan because I knew he was doing something, he could have been here. Those shoulda, coulda, wouldas. Those shoulda, coulda, wouldas could eat you alive. Then you have anger because yes, I'm understanding that my child's gone or my person's gone, and I'm mad. Anger is part of it. And then what goes up comes down. Then you have that depression. like I'm depressed, I'm upset, because after a while, people get tired of you hearing about your child or hearing about your loved one that died. We understand it, but we have to go on our lives too.
Right.
And that's a heavy weight to carry. You want me to carry your vicarious trauma. I can't do it. So yes, I'll be here with you for a few days, but now I got to move on. I can't carry this cloak of heaviness. So you get that depression. And I know everybody says this, that acceptance is the best phase. Accepting is accepting your new normal, but it could be the hardest phase too, because that person ain't coming back. This is my new normal. This is, I have to live with this. And can I live with this? Can I live with my husband not being here? Can I live with my child not being here? And it's not saying, and I won't tell people that it's not saying because you reach the acceptance phase that I understand this is what it's going to be, that you're not going to still, have those grief moments. You're going to always have those grief moments. You can smell something. It can smell like a food or something could bring you back to that grief moment. Mm-hmm. You can always, and allow yourself to have it. But if it prolongs and it starts to work that you cannot even get out of bed and get out of the house, then you may need to have some kind of, more therapeutic interventions.
Thank you for that. That's really summarized it of everything. You're good at this. You should come back more here. And so the last question is, so what message would you want immigrant and families listen today to hear? Like,
I just want to tell you all, and I want to look at
look at them. Yeah.
Look at you all when I tell you this. You are not alone. We're in solidarity with you. We hold your hand through everything. And I know it could be hard. It can be hard, but we are here. And never, never forget who you are. God made you perfect, who you are, and stand on that. Now, thank you.
Thank you. That's really a good, amazing message. And I want to say thank you for coming. We'll probably see you more here. And, we also want you to take care of yourself.
Okay.
You're doing a lot of good work. So always take care of yourself, and we will pray for you, Nanette. And
thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.